How's it going, everybody? This is Aaron the Pedantic, and I'm doing this campaign diary live. Mostly because I hate having to upload stuff later, and I like interacting with audience and things like that. Maybe there's some stuff y'all will bring up that is interesting. So, if you are not a fan of me going over comments as we go through this, then I'm sorry. That's it's just what's going to happen. I like interacting with everybody. I'm sorry. But yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about last night's session. So last night we played first edition AD&D, and we played through. I'm okay. Players, it is okay for you to hear this as long as you don't take this and decide, okay, this means I'm going to read the module. So, or anything like that. Don't do that. But assuming that you don't do that, I have absolutely no problem with you just paying attention to this and then seeing what my perspective was and all that kind of stuff. So players, you're fine. For everybody else, maybe you'll find some entertainment in this. Maybe there's something insightful, or maybe you can point and laugh. Last time was a bit of a point and laugh situation. So this one is B1, because not B1 as in Search of the Unknown or Into the Unknown. It's B1 as in Group B's first session. And I entitled it, Maybe I Should Hold the Money, because of some stuff that happened in play. So we originally had maybe like, I don't know, 6 or 7 characters. I feel like people signed up to play the game. Only 4 showed up. And fortunately, by this point, I had already been thinking about something that really changed the way that I looked at this group. And I think ultimately it's going to be something that's going to make this group really cool. So we had 4 people actually show up to play the game. And 2 of them are in Group A. So we had somebody that couldn't show up for one reason or another. We had some people that dropped off, who I'm not really sure what was going on with them. We had some people that went from yeses to maybes, and then we had some people that switched to nos. And it's perfectly understandable. I basically started this off knowing there's a very solid chance that people would fizzle out, and then I may have to consolidate Group A and Group B together. I knew from the beginning that this was something that's going to happen. My desire is to make sure that I'm running a campaign in first edition in this world of Greyhawk for the near future, like from now until I stop for some reason. I really don't want to stop anytime soon. I want to develop stuff in a world for a long time. So I ran into this knowing that we may have not the best turnout, so I may have to combine things, but ultimately I want to keep running in Greyhawk because it's a cool world, with first edition because it's a cool game. So that is kind of what I walked into. And fortunately, my wheels started spinning about what I wanted to do with this game. So Group A is in many ways Gary's game. And what I mean by that is it may not be the way that Gary ran first edition, but it's the kind of game that Gary recommends that you put out using first edition's DMG and PHP and all the stuff that you get from it. That is Group A. And so basically they're starting from nothing. They are getting exactly what they get. It is a bootstraps kind of game. Group B, I decided yesterday, maybe a few moments before we started playing, with a little bit of this was, things don't just boom. All of a sudden, my mind is completely changed and everything. It was a gradual change. And what basically happened was I was like, there is a concept that I really want to play with. And that concept is that you have, rather than having these people that are just, they have agreed to work together on a job, they really have not much of a connection to each other. And as far as their importance in the world, it's purely defined by their class and not much else. Really, instead of that, I'm like, okay, instead of starting from nowhere, we're going to start from somewhere. And so I'm thinking, what does that look like in a world like this, in Greyhawk? And to me, the first thing I thought of was, Well, we have magic users. That is, most of the party is magic users, or at least people that are connected to magic in some way. And how do magic? Well, magic do by getting spell books, by getting access to scrolls and having all of this kind of stuff. And so then I'm thinking about Jack Vance, and I'm thinking about Tales of the Dying Earth. I'm thinking about, well, whenever you want to learn things that another magic user knows how to do, a lot of times you do stuff for them. And I'm thinking, how cool would it be if they were all in the employment of a more powerful magic user? So that was kind of the concept I started with. And a lot of it started like feeding into itself from things that happened, interestingly, from Group A's stuff. So I'm really kind of wanting there to be parallels between what's going on with Group A and Group B. I'm not going to force it in like incredibly, but I have control over the starting scenario for each group. And so because of that, then I can have parallels at the beginning that maybe can compound themselves as we go along. Maybe it doesn't amount to anything. I'm perfectly fine with that if that's the case. But there's a completely different situation here. Let me check some comments before we get back to it. Bogo's Bented. I don't know what the hell that means. Dissendorfs. The evil guys. So about the evil guys, they're not actually evil anymore. It's mostly neutral. So that is just something that happened. I'm not sad by it, but at the same time, I was planning on things being a little bit more evil, and that's okay. We'll see exactly what happens. Iran says, Aaron being honest until I stop for some reason. I mean, that's the only way to be. You never know when things are just going to die. And so all I can do is prepare for the worst and pray for the best. Did you start in the city of Greyhawk? So Group A started in Hamlet. Group B is starting in Darkshelf. And like I said at the beginning, players, you're welcome to know that this module exists, but don't go and read it. So the module that Darkshelf comes out of, it comes from A0, which is a module that was made as a prequel to the Against the Slave Masters, Against the Slave Lords series. Hold on. This one, which, print on demand, very inexpensive. And this was actually made in like 2012 or something like that. So they contacted Skip Williams to do a module. And I agree with what Dwayne says here. He says Darkshelf Query is a great module. Have run it multiple times. I was surprised by how good it was. I thought because it had Wizards of the Coast nasty little paws on it that it really just wouldn't be that good. But it has a really strong amount of detail, maybe a little bit more detail than I would like, but at the same time, it is incredibly well designed, and it's a good dungeon crawl. It's ultimately a good dungeon crawl. It's not like Hamlet where you have a fully detailed city, to utilize with a lot of NPCs suggested, with a tavern, with all those kinds of things. I had to do that myself, but you had a starting scenario and a place for them to check out and good maps. And it's dangerous. It is very dangerous. There's a very high probability of death. So that is, I'm excited about it. So no, I didn't start in Castle Greyhawk, although that was mentioned to be a standard AD&D start. He says that's a standard AD&D. You all work for this powerful magic user for good reason. If you think about it, with the standard AD&D rules, you have the need for training. You have the need for having access to spell books, because you don't just get new spells as you level up. You got to learn them from somewhere. So either you're finding scrolls out in the wild and you just happen to roll a percentile and that just happens to be one of the spells that you can learn, or you're spending a lot of money on spell research and coming up with your own spells. It's one or the other. Pick one. And assuming that neither of those are the case, then you're going to want to try and get the person who is your patron to teach you stuff that they already know that they're comfortable with sharing. So that's another thing. A lot of the spells that they are having available to them are spells that are not exactly the most threatening from other magic users, but they're useful for what the purpose that the magic user wants them to fulfill. And maybe if they prove themselves useful and trustworthy, they will get access to more and more potent spells as they go along. So that's something that we're going to be playing with. It should be pretty cool. Yield Geek says I recorded a review of it yesterday, so y'all should go check out Yield Geek's channel, and I will too, to check out the review of Dark Shelf Quarry, Danger at Dark Shelf Quarry, which is A0, as I said. Okay. So we'll go back to the little bit of discussion, and we'll go back to comments. Hopefully I can keep up with comments. I'm going to try my best, but I also don't want to get too lost in the weeds, and away from what I wanted to talk about with this particular campaign diary. So with our players, they, again, like last time, the experience that they have is pretty wild. Almost all of them have some experience with AD&D or early D&D in some capacity, 5th edition in some way. But we had people with GURPS experience, RuneQuest, Worlds of Wonder. I mean, things I've never even heard of. People that have been playing RPGs for a long time. So that is refreshing. And one of the things that I was sure to ask them, especially with this group, because remember, Group A is Gary's game. Group B is Aaron's game. And so one of the things I was sure to ask them is, look, if I get flustered with rules as written, how offended would you be if I threw something out the window? If I said, yeah, I'm not doing this procedure or that procedure anymore, just because it's just not getting the desired result. And all of them said, perfectly fine with it. Do it. In fact, they seemed a little bit too enthusiastic to say that. So I kind of reiterated, I do want to try these things and see what happens. We talked about our expectations and aspirations. For the most part, we had such things come out as I play my character the way that they should be played. What does that mean exactly? This was something that the guy that plays Wizzlewig was saying. And he's saying, basically, he'll play his paladin in such a way that he'll hold the door so that everybody else can get out, and he'll die. His character will die because that's what his character would do in that situation. Not exactly the prolific, I'm going to screw the party because that's what my character would do kind of thing. But not exactly too out of line for the Robbie-esque, and yes, Robbie, I'm using your name in this kind of way, well, my character might do something that's a little bit stupid. It may not be the best for everybody, but it's not that bad. But it's what he would do, and that's interesting. So that is one of the things that we had considered. There were a lot of people talking about experience with Neverwinter Nights and things like that. So it was actually kind of cool. We had a great discussion about our involvement with those old D&D games. Let's say old. I'm going to put that in heavy quotations because there will be people on here that are like, oh, that was, y'all are just little wee babes to have enjoyed Neverwinter Nights and things like that. Let's see what else. People that just got into the OSR and are really loving it. People with experience primarily with 5th edition's Adventurers League as far as the new stuff goes. And I forgot to try and get some information as to how that went for them. But in any case, so our experiences were, kind of all over the place, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how that pans out. But for the most part, whenever I talked about what my kind of vision was for the game, I made sure that they understood that I really want them to have a strong input valve on what exactly they are wanting from the game, even more so than the Group A. Group A, like I said, is a lot less experimental. I'm going to be taking a lot more risks and experiments with Group B. So how did that manifest? Well, we already had them connected to this NPC that's in the world, Rancent the Watcher. So Rancent the Watcher is a powerful magic user, and they work for him. And what does Rancent the Watcher do? How does he handle this employment? That's going to be a really big feature, or it could be. At least for now, it's a big feature. So they started out in a way better situation than Group A. And if you're in Group A and you're not one of the people that's in Group A and Group B, you might be mad by this, and I get it. And if you decide that you want to be in Group B instead, well, we have room for you too. And I prefer you don't leave Group A. But basically, one of the things that I decided is, look, the module that I'm running with 4 players is not going to work out that well. It is going to resolve in a lot of death or a very heavy emphasis on people running henchmen. And I have no problem with people running henchmen to a great degree. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Everybody starts with 4,500 XP. And so before anybody says, Aaron, why did you do that? Like, let them have the experience of being first level and all that kind of stuff. I get it. But here's the thing. They've all experienced that. This is not, there are no neophytes in this group or anything like that. And there is that game for them if they decide that that's the game that they want to play. That is Group A. They can go to Group A, and that's going to be the hardcore, more gritty experience of AD&D. Group A is that. That's the one where you don't get shit. You earn every little thing that you possibly get and all that kind of stuff. Group B is going to have a little bit more of a thematic approach. And so I said 4,501. Originally, I said 4,500, and the illusionist says I am one XP shy of level 3. And I said, fuck it. You know, you die in 2 hits anyway. 1 more XP. Everybody, 1 more XP. So the way that puts things out, everybody is level 2 or 3, basically. So why did I do that? I did that for the fact that we can emphasize these characters a little bit more and have them a little bit less reliant on henchmen. I don't hate henchmen or anything like that, but at the same time, it's a very lethal game, and we are playing into a particular theme, which is, you know, working for this NPC, at least for the moment, and having a bit of status to work into, and just the different kinds of things that you think about, as opposed to Group A, which is we're going into the dungeon, we're starting from nothing, we're going to, you know, lift ourselves up from the bootstraps and all that kind of stuff. So so that means that if you know, somebody in Group A dies, it is you know, who gives a shit? If somebody from Group B dies, nobody really gives a shit. But at the same time, you know, maybe there is a little bit more meaning to that, maybe that kind of thing. So that is kind of the thing that we're starting with. Now, I'm not going to be pulling any punches at all. But you know, so they have this sponsor that is helping them have the opportunity to learn spells for the magic users, who has trainers at his beck and call that will help give access to training. It won't pay for training. We'll give access to training, at least, so that, you know, whenever they level up in the future, then they know somebody already. They don't need to go out and find a trainer unless they're in a different region. Then they need to go out and find a trainer. But otherwise, they will have the ability to say, oh, no, whenever I was working for Rancent, then, you know, I knew that I could go talk to Gilmex, and he is an excellent fighter. And we already have a rapport together, and, you know, he'll be my trainer, basically. So there's all that kind of stuff involved. The monthly expenses, for those who don't know that this is a thing in first edition AD&D, one of the things that Gary says is that you should expect to have your player characters pay 100 gold pieces per month for their living expenses per level. So at level 1, you pay 100 gold pieces per month. At level 2, 200 gold pieces per month. It is going to continue and continue and continue. Obviously, it's an abstraction of the fact that you just become more and more of a ritzy person as you go along. Now, to me, if you're going to use those kinds of abstractions, then that means that I'm going to make assumptions about where that money is going, and that is going to have greater effects. That is me personally. I'm not just going to arbitrarily say, well, you're making more money, so I'm going to take more of your money, which Gygax absolutely did believe in, just trying to make sure that they're always hungry, which is understandable. The game is about gold in a lot of ways. And if they're just sitting on a mountain of it, then they may be less inclined to go do things. So, but in this case, Group B, they receive a salary So because of that, as long as they are performing satisfactorily, they don't have to worry about those expenses. Not only that, this man Rancent, what kind of man is he? Well, he is to me a person who is personally invested in making sure that this region is stable. Now, I like to make sure that it's phrased that way for a particular reason. I made sure that whenever I told them about this person, that they understood to a degree, at least that I gave them that hint. So they would understand this doesn't mean that he is a good person. It doesn't mean that he is a lawful good, just, goody two shoes. I am here to help everybody. I'm your Gandalf, that kind of thing. No, he is somebody who wants things and believes that the best way for him to get the things that he wants is to make sure that the supporting communities around him don't suffer, because that will impact his ability to get things that he needs and things that he wants. And now this is something that we did talk about, because we were talking about evil characters. We talked about the fact that, yes, you could play an evil character in this group, but you're not going to shit where you eat. You're not going to say, oh, this guy that's in our party, he got the magic item I really wanted. So I'm going to find a way to get him killed. So that way I can get that magic item, because guess what? People are going to not trust you anymore. That's just, and outside of that, we should be able to accept on a meta level, people aren't going to want to play with you anymore, very likely. Anything that makes the game breakdown is going to have to go. And anything that, in this case, it's just not wise, it's not prudent to live in that kind of way. People that are going to be evil and do evil things are going to be covert about it. They're not going to shit where they eat, usually, unless they're really stupid or on drugs. So that is something that I kind of highlighted there. And you know what? This guy works by a similar principle. He is going to want the people around him to flourish, because that helps him flourish. It's kind of the, if you've ever read the Apology of Socrates, in the way that he says to harm the community is basically to inevitably harm himself, at the charge of corrupting the youth and all that kind of stuff. So in that way, that gives them an idea about who he is. And so we also have some other things. He's called Rancent the Watcher. So the Watcher is going to tell them some things. They know that he has his eye on them. He has his eye on many things. And whenever they walk around, if they have their amulets worn visibly, then people are going to be possibly on edge, because they know that these mercenaries are connected to Rancent. They know that if they mess with these mercenaries, then they could provoke his ire. So this means that there may be encounters, and this is actually kind of neat, because then whenever I whip out my good old percentiles and I give it a good roll, and I see that, we rolled that they want to be really helpful. And this is a group that may not be otherwise interested in being helpful. Maybe it is some humanoids. Well, why are these humanoids wanting to be helpful? It's because perhaps they see the medallion on your neck, and they see that they really don't want to piss off Rancent. Maybe they want to be on his good list this year. So there are those kinds of things that may work into their favor. It also gives them the tactical decision at times to put it away, because maybe at this point they don't want people associating them with Rancent. They think that it is better for their purposes if people just think of them as nobodies. Maybe they, especially because the group has an illusionist who he may or may not have disguised self as an ability, but not an ability, a spell. But that, those kinds of things are things that they can play with, things that the group A can't play with to start with. Those are something that may come into effect, 6 months, a year into the campaign, who knows? So that's one of the things I really wanted to do, is I wanted to make sure that they are different games. It's not just, well, we have this group's Dungeon Delve and we have this group's Dungeon Delve. Instead, we have the Pepsi and we have Dr. Pepper. They both got caffeine. They're both sweet, but at the same time, very different flavors. One of them has 23. This is cream soda. I'm actually drinking a leftover my wife's version because I don't know why she likes the cream soda version, but I'm actually about to go back on my diet. I had fun for Thanksgiving, but in Christmas. No, I didn't have fun for Thanksgiving. I only ate for Christmas. So I'm about to go back on the diet. But all right. So let me let me check some comments and then I'll get back to what I was talking about. So what these magic users do, he's sending out for groceries and to pick up his dry cleaning. So in this case, they're actually being sent out to keep the community safe. So it seems purely beneficial, right? And he has the funding to make this happen. He's given them a big old bag with 1,000 gold pieces that most people they don't have a whole lot of need to worry about people trying to steal this money as long as they wear their medallions. People are going to say, "Oh, you don't rob Bransant. That's why would you do that? He sees everything." You know, that's the kind of thing that is going to be going on there. But the group knows that whatever they need to get the job done to make whatever's happening in Dark Shelf safer, so that quarry is still delivering their limestone and their granite and even better things in things continue. And even better than that, you have these mercenaries that know, hey, if you happen to ever see this artifact right here, I need you to bring it back to me. And they know what it looks like. It's programmed into their mind. They know what exactly to look out for. They don't know its significance. Not even the magic users. They don't know what this thing is capable of. They don't know anything like that. But they know that Rancent wants it for some reason, and he will pay dearly for it. And that will give them options. That will give them things that they can do if they ever find it, which they may not. So let's see what else we have here. The slave lords have the best rates for dry cleaning. They would, wouldn't they? Okay. As far as players turning up, is it open for new players? If so, how so? Yes, it is. So just go on our Discord and send me a DM, basically. What I do is on my Discord server, I give people the right to access the Greyhawk channels. They have a channel there to roll up characters and all that kind of stuff. We play on Monday nights at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time until about 10 or so, just kind of whenever people need to start leaving, as long as it's not unreasonable. Let's say Yield Geek says, not good for level 1 PCs, best for level 2 or 3, but don't expect to be sufficient to get the PCs up to the levels needed for A1 to 4. That is very true. I'm not at all expecting to even run A1 to 4. With both the Hamlet group and with the Dark Shelf group, my expectation was I'm giving you a dungeon to start with. I'm giving you a scenario, and I'm going to have plenty of shit in these towns for you to get up to other things and to just go from there. So they may find out about what's going on in other places. I'm not going to mention by name because the players might be listening. And they may decide to follow that, but they may also find themselves in over their heads. And that's perfectly fine. That's AD&D to me. That's D&D in general. So rent. Yeah. Let's see. If you care more about your magic doodad than other players, you ain't worth playing with, in my humble opinion. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Is the Watcher named Uatu? You're gonna probably judge me, but that's probably a reference that I'm not familiar with. So, yeah, Robbie already nailed. Heroic evil is harder to do. Yeah, it is, but at the same time, that's what we're shooting for. Okay, so let's get back to the discussion at hand. All right, so like I said, we have A0. One of the things before I get to how I'm using the module, before I get to that too much though, one of the things that I also did is I said you all belong to this company, and come up with a name for the company, come up with what your character in particular offers the company. And one of the things I suggested that I thought would be kind of a fun thing to tinker with, possibly, or it could be terrible, is the idea of roles in the party. Now, we have done this on a meta level. You do have the mapper, you have the caller, sometimes all that kind of stuff. But I thought about what if we were to approach this this group with a more A-team kind of perspective. You have, and this is something that people do all the time. It's nothing, like too out there, nothing too creative or anything like that. But one of the things I said is maybe you have somebody who's a treasurer for the group, somebody that you are going to trust to be the person handling the money. Maybe you're going to have somebody who is typically the person who you're going to trust to handle your tactical decisions. And when I say that, there's a big caveat that says basically, and actually with both of them, that says not to the extent that you're not going to listen to anything anybody else says, but to the extent that there's probably going to be a default assumption that you're the one who is going to make the final call, usually. And that you will listen to what other people have to say, and you will let that inform the kinds of things that you say. I mean, that ultimately is the expectation for the caller. You don't expect the caller to literally just say what everybody else's character does, or really you don't have a group full of players. You have people that are spectators and one player and a DM. So that it's nothing too out there, but I really wanted them to think about this. What is, if in this hyper team dynamic, what exactly do you represent? What can you present to the team that makes your character stand out? They're still thinking about it, but we do have somebody who's decided to be the treasurer, and that's hence the name of the episode. Maybe I should hold the money, and that is, like the whole concept of this guy is holding our money came into why is he holding our money, and it came into some things that people rolled up on their secondary skill charts and things like that. So we have 4 different characters. We have Wizzlewig, the illusionist, who is an interesting character already. We didn't spend any time getting into character backgrounds or anything like that. It's not what we did. We instead, we just started playing and learning about who these characters were in play. And to me, that's the way to go. That is the way to go. So Wizzlewig, as we learned, is a man who will blend into any place that he needs to blend into, even with his very lack of charisma. He's still a likable character so far. But one of the things that is interesting about him is he not only has the medallion signifying his employment by Rancent, but he also has a medallion for almost just about everything else. So whenever he went into the Temple of Ula later on, he happened to have a holy symbol for the Temple of Ula. And that kind of thing is going to be something that I'm sure he's going to have a lot of fun with. He can go in and be like, oh yes, I'm exactly like one of you. I believe in the stuff that you believe. We're friends. We can make this work. So Wizzlewig is an interesting character so far. Him and his cart pulled by goats. So we'll see how that goes. We have the names are killing me. So we have Finn the Thief. So Finn the Thief is not somebody you want to trust with money. And we learned this very, very quickly, as the lot of them all met with Neaster. So Neaster is the mayor, overlord of Dark Shelf, who oversees all these things. So they met him in town hall, and Neaster was currently meeting with somebody else, somebody who's obviously an aristocrat. And one of the things I really wanted to try to stress was this aristocrat was an aristocrat without saying that he was an aristocrat, by emphasizing that he is dressed in all of this foreign stuff. He's got this, nice bejeweled stiletto on his hip, and he's clearly a Flan man. For those who don't know, that is a race, ethnicity on Earth. He's clearly from the Flanace, but he's dressed entirely in Bacloonish things. And so he kind of gives off this vibe of the foreign is superior kind of thing. So he's I wouldn't say so like loathing his own culture, but finding it just kind of quaint compared to the Bacloonish things, the finer things in life. So he clearly shows some contempt for this group. And part of that is because they are a group of no humans. They are all, and people might, no humans. Aaron, what are you doing? Well, They are all. We have a gnome. We have a half elf, a an elf, and hold on, a halfling. Yeah. So no humans, no full humans, and this guy is a little bit uppity about that. So uppity indeed that he's not worried about Rancid. So he's more than happy to be a dick to these people. Whereas Nistor is very happy to see them. And once the moment that he sees one of them wearing their amulets, he says, "Oh, thank God you're here." So he starts going into what exactly is going on. And he goes on and on about how he really wants them to be discreet about what is going on here, because he doesn't want to sabotage his relationships with the people that he's suspecting of ill works, whatever it might be, something ill. He suspects badness out of people. So, what has been going on in Dark Shelf? So, here's a little bit of information for those who aren't familiar with the module. So, what is going on in Dark Shelf? And the players already know this. I'm not going to give them anything that they don't already know. They know that there have been bodies that have been turning up half eaten on the river bed and by the ocean, and basically close to the village, the coast. It is a coastal village. It is I already mentioned it has a quarry, but so they have bodies that have been showing up. That is one of the most pressing things. Why are people dying? Secondly, they have had an ever increasing problem with slavers and pirates along the coast. People have been getting kidnapped, just disappearing. Farmers, fishermen, that kind of thing. They've just been disappearing. And this is a problem that has been going on for some time. But they had wild success recently, in which they sent the, I guess you would call him the foreman or something to that extent. His name is Basili, the foreman of the quarry, along with his dwarven friends, to go raid a local slavers' camp. And Nestor feels like this went too well. He's suspicious. He says, "I don't want you to tip off that I'm suspicious of him, just in case. This is all in my head. So discretion is really the key." And so the group is basically told, "I would like for you to see what's going on in the quarry. Make sure there's nothing unbecoming. It went a little bit too easy. I'm afraid that he may have some kind of connection to slavers or something like that. Who knows? But I really don't want you to jeopardize my relationship with him." And he stresses that because even though there is this concern and there's people that are workers in the mines that are saying, "We hear weird noises, there's moans, there's all this kind of stuff." Even though there is that, they're also making a ton of output. There's limestone and granite coming out of this place in droves. They're even finding quartz. They're even finding gold. So, I mean, there's all kinds of money that is flowing into this town. Dark Shelf is maybe a few decades away from some serious growth if this continues. And obviously the Overlord wants to see that. I mean, who doesn't want to be ground zero of the next California gold rush, So yeah, it's a very precarious situation, but he says, "I trust that you can be discreet." And so the players are intelligent players. And so the first thing that they noted is, wow, so he wants us to be incredibly discreet. And they even asked how discreet. And he said, "I don't want anybody to know that I'm suspicious." And they're like, wow, he's willing to say this in front of this aristocrat guy. So who the hell is this? So this is something that I feel like they mentally put a pin in, which is exactly what I want them to do in these kinds of situations. But they kind of took note of it, and they did what they were there to do, which it worked out well. But there was a funny moment where Robbie, his character Covidia, and yes, his character's name is Covidia Eternus, and I know. She was looking around the office and just saying, "Oh, what kind of place is this? What can I tell about this guy?" And the way I described it was being gaudy, but not as gaudy as the aristocrat guy. So he had some valuables, and the thief was really starting to think, it's the kind of thing that would fit in a bag. I had one of those great moments where a player is like, "Is there anything in there that I would be able to tuck away in my bag that would be worth a lot of money?" And I said, "Yes, there would. but for the life of me, I couldn't think of what the fuck that would be. And I didn't have it written down on the page. So I was just like, and the players kind of saw my wheels spinning for the moment. And it was an entertaining situation because then Wizzlewig decided, he said, I've worked with this guy before. And that was one of the things, one of the conceits we started with, that they've already worked together before. I put my hand on Finn's shoulder and I say, right, discretion. So that way Finn knew it's not the best time to steal from this guy. I think Covidia even basically tuned in saying, yeah, I like the way you think, but we can come back to that later. So who knows, maybe in the dead of night they start trying to break in and steal things. We'll see how that goes. And if they do, there is the question, how much does the overseer push things, but what else do they know? So they know that he actually did send for someone to investigate things, a man named Quan, a monk. I had to think about how would somebody describe a monk in Greyhawk, and eventually I just settled, well, he's a monk. So he basically said that he sent this guy to go check things out, and Quan was communicating with him, but the last communication that he sent said that there was a secret entrance perhaps to the quarry through the river, that he found a secret dock and that he was going to try and investigate that. And that was the last that ever was heard of Quan. So now they are already being paid to do this job by their employer. They're already being funded, to get whatever they need to. But they're also being offered by Nistor, if you can bring Quan back, hopefully alive, then you'll get some money. So there's a lot of incentive for them to do this stuff. And so they have a mission. They have some information. What else is there that they already know? They knew that they could find more things perhaps around town. So this session ended up being primarily investigatory, and it's going to be interesting how the next sessions are because of that. But yeah, so they got this information. They said, all right, we're gonna take care of it. Don't you worry. So they later on decided to go into town and try and find out what they could, try and get as many things as they needed. They bought some provisions. I basically detailed, that there is a tavern, there's a store, there's this, there's that. There's a temple. The temple was to Ula. So I am using Greyhawk deities. However, there's a big asterisk on however, I also am using the assumption that there are many gods. So that means that if somebody creates a cleric, they don't have to use a Greyhawk god. It's just that if they don't use a Greyhawk god, it's a very lesser deity, or perhaps it's one of the Siluese deities that are just well beyond the scope of the kinds of things that people worship in the Flanace. And what's the impact on that? Nothing really. Nothing terrible. It's just that you have a deity that most people just don't recognize, and they're like, "Wow, you can do miracles. That's cool. Tell me about your god," and that way I can make fun of them or something. So, yeah, that is one of the things that we are dealing with. But the temple of Ula, Ula is indeed a deity of Greyhawk, and a good aligned one. And so whenever they had their very own cleric enter the temple, they were warmly regarded. And that's something that I am keeping as just a general thing. Even if you are clerics of different deities, in general, if your deities are known to be of roughly the same alignment, you're going to get along. If you're both good, then that's great. If you're both lawful, then there's something good there. If there's, it might be a mixed bag. If you're like lawful good and lawful evil, then there may be some rivalry. The classic example being Hextor and Heronius. So, yeah, that is one of the assumptions that I'm working with. So, the party's cleric. Why is the name escaping me? It starts with a G. Oh shit. Where is the name? I wrote a lot on this page. I didn't write his character's name on that page. Okay, it's I had it right here though. Glyph Dan. Why the hell could I not think of that? So Glyph Dan, their cleric, gets a very warm welcome from the cleric of Ula, who I had already decided that this cleric is kind of bonkers and very like I used and just this is something that I would recommend anybody that one of the things that you do is use random NPC generators and then adjust to fit the thing that sounds interesting. And that's one of the things that I did to come up with Warder, who basically he is a cleric. He's a cleric of decent ability. So he's actually they don't know this, but they'll find out if they investigate anyway. But I mean, he is at least strong enough to remove curses if need be. But he will expect donations. So there is a cleric of moderate ability there, but he's also kind of fucking crazy. For those who don't know, Ula is a deity that is pretty open to or accepted by demihumans, gnomes, dwarves, things like that. It has to do with things of the earth, which makes perfect sense for a small mining community. You know, to me, that was the deity for them. Absolutely, 100%. Gemstones, and this particular temple is decked out. But some one of the things that Ula is not Ula, but Warder in particular is set on is that there are ghosts in the mines. And the way that I described them is actually a word I stole from a YouTuber called Markiplier, which it's ridiculous, but he calls them ghosty goos. So whenever they went to try and get some information from Warder, and they said, "Oh, hey, maybe you've seen our friend Quan. We've been looking for him." He says, "Oh, Quan's kind of unpleasant, but I hope he's okay. I'm really concerned about all the ghosty goos around here, you know." And then so this whole discussion kind of went on about the potential for that, which is it's always a nice thing to present to the players. Yeah, you're level 2, and you may have ghosts. Especially considering nobody has any magic weapons. But these are experienced players, so they know probably asterisk that I am probably not expecting them to take literally everything I say as gospel because it's coming out of an NPC. I think that they've been around the block a few times and they know that that's not how things are going to go down exactly. Does that mean I'm lying that there aren't ghosts? We'll see. Who knows? I know, but that's beside the point. So they got some information from there. They also decided that what they were going to do was they were going to try and find out, are there people hiring in town? So I had to ask myself, is there a quest board, an employment help wanted kind of thing? And one of the things I decided was a small town of this stature where almost everybody is somehow connected to the mines or is a friend of a friend or something of that nature. Not really. There's nothing quite like that. The closest thing I could think of is a network of homeless people that know stuff. To me, if you have people that are, just kind of living off of charity, or not really charity, but, they don't really have anything to offer by way of physical labor or anything like that, then what else can they do? And to me, that is they can be sources of information. So the people that are not able to work otherwise are people that a lot of times you'll go to and toss a coin to and say, "Hey, what do you know about this?" And people will, come by and gossip with them and things like that. So that's one of the things that I thought of for Dark Shelf. I'm not sure if I'm going to extend that to the wider region of Nyrond or anything like that, or even the Viscounty of Eventide. But one of the things that I thought would be kind of cool is, if you have somebody who is unemployed, then they're information brokers. They're somebody that you go to for information. So they were trying to find somebody who's unemployed to get information from. And I don't know if they forgot about it or what exactly happened, but the moment whenever they're in the temple and somebody said, it was actually Glyph Dan said, "Hey, can I give some donation for the poor? Do you have a donation box for the poor?" And I said, Warder kind of looks off and says, "Hey, Henry!" And this very disheveled, disgusting-looking man comes out. And I don't know if they caught this, but I basically said, he comes out of a side room in the church, and he holds out the guy says to him, somebody's got a donation for you. And then he holds out a hand, and then he takes it back and he says, "Oh, sorry," and then gives him the other hand. They don't they don't really know I was kind of hinting at there, but he was using a chamber pot. That was kind of the thing that I was going for in the moment, but I don't know that they caught on to it. And so, yeah, it's kind of gross, but I was really trying to kind of play up the fact that this guy was kind of nasty. But still, Henry, good guy, a lot of fun. But once they actually gave him some donations, I don't think that they actually extracted any useful information out of him, which was kind of funny. But they went to the tavern. They encountered some people there. So the tavern had people gambling, which to me, every tavern has people gambling, because that way, if the players want to do some carousing, they can do that, So there were people gambling. There were some very loud, unsavory sorts. The way I described their equipment in such a way that it's pretty clear that they kill people if they need to. They're capable of killing people if they need to. And also made it sound like they were very unsavory, and they seemed to be talking about utter nonsense. And I was this close. I mean, the session's already passed, so I feel comfortable saying this now. I was this close to basically, I was looking something up, because I was like, oh, do they have thieves' cant? Is that something that they get like at first level, or is that something that comes later? And as I was looking that up, to see if the thief was able to understand what they were talking about, then they kind of got me distracted on something else. So if one of the players watches this, specifically if Finn watches this and decides, hey, what were they saying? Then I might be like, oh, well, I guess you would have heard this. So I'll go ahead and tell you what they're saying. But in any case, there's also a very boisterous man. To me, if you're going to have hireable NPCs, and some of them are going to be fighter types, well, you know what? Some of them are going to be boisterous, and they're going to want to let everybody know just how valiant they are. And I thought, well, so what could we have about this character? And again, I like to use, like I said, I like to use random generators. The one in particular that I was making use of, just so for anybody who's curious, is Don John, AD&D random generator for NPCs. And one of the things that I noted on there was that, okay, this is not a cleric, but he does have a holy symbol. And I thought, okay, holy symbol, not a cleric, but we want him to be, like I said, kind of a boisterous type. So I thought, well, what is a deity that somebody might take very seriously, and that might turn them into a very boisterous kind of full of bravado and valor and that kind of thing. Boom, Heronius. So we have a man who dedicates his life to extolling the virtues of Heronius, but he's not a cleric, because not everybody who does that should be a cleric necessarily. But he is an ass kicker. He is definitely an ass kicker. And so he was very excited again, because this relationship with good-oriented deities and people that believe in those deities. Whenever he saw Gliththan, he was very happy to see him. And they were fast friends. And whenever it came down to, hey, we're actually investigating the murders that have been, not the murders, they didn't say murders, the deaths that have been happening nearby, and immediately, his name is Almericus. He says that he would be, he's actually looking for them himself. He wants to put them to the sword, because, what good would his ferocity be if not for the pursuit of justice and retribution and those kinds of things. So really, to me, this was a guy, the way that I conceived him, who, if they talk to him and they express a desire to go hunt what's responsible, he's on it. Only thing that he wants is an equal share of whatever they find, for donations, obviously, because that's what he would do. They also use the innkeeper in order to find some people in the community that could be hired as miners. So then there was this whole thing about, well, in a community like this, where you have this new person taking over the mines, Basili, who's kind of a dick and people aren't really sure of. And there are some things that there's some dwarves working for him. Well, where do the dwarves come from? And what happens to those jobs that the dwarves are doing? Well, that would take away from, theoretically, the jobs that some of the humans are doing. Maybe there's not really as much of a need for there to be so many workers from the town. So that means people get laid off. And so whenever they're asking, are there miners that we might be able to hire? And to which Finn very ardently said, miners with an E. We do not support child labor. The question was obviously, yeah, there are people that have been laid off and they are pissed off about it. They grew up in this town. They have been miners. Their parents were miners. Their grandparents were miners. And then these dwarves come along, and this particular asshole dwarf, Basili, comes along and puts them out of a job, and people start dying, and the things are peculiar. So they are pissed off about it. So, and they are in dire need of employment. I actually kind of gave a hint that there are criminal activities going on in the community that are occurring because people are not getting the work that they used to get. So there is a bit of discord ready to be sowed. And so what they decided to do is they decided to hire these people, and it was not hard. Give them a very basic laborer income, and they're not going to be able to say no because they need the money, basically, is kind of the situation. And they're going to get them a job at the mine, basically. So what we ended the session with was kind of some discussion on what exactly is going to happen next time. So this whole session, it was about 3 hours. And it was, hopefully, at least from my end, it seemed like they had a good time. Hopefully a session where they were able to get a feel for the town. They were able to get some snippets of information from the people that they could, make a kind of an impression that this is a town that is alive, that they can go and be a part of in the future if they choose to. Those are the things that I really wanted to emphasize, and that their actions will have consequences and all those kinds of things. But also that there is a job that must be done and many ways to tackle it. One of the things that I thought about was what if I were to start them already there? They're already there. Well, the problem is, and I'm perfectly happy telling like this with the players having this knowledge. There are many ways to tackle this particular place. That's one of the things that I really love about it. There are multiple entrances. There are many tactical decisions that can be made, many approaches. That's one of the things I really like about it. I do not want to deprive them of that. So to me, it was better that they have a cold start, where so far we ran an entire session without getting into any fights. And I will admit that my dice fingers were itching a little bit. But at the same time, with that, they have come up with maybe a plan, several plans. They're trying to figure out which one they want to go with. They have learned a good bit about the community. They've gotten some hirelings. They've bought their provisions. They know what kinds of people are around the town, and we have things shaping up for a great next session, is basically what I'm trying to go towards. Now, one of the things that I joked about, because there was a point where one of them said, so we're just going to show up there at the mine with 4 workers and some pitchforks, some mining picks. And what are we going to do with them? You're like, are we just going to walk in there and start mining? We can't do that. Are we going to try and sneak in there somehow? Or, what exactly is the plan? And I kind of jokingly, and I should know better than this as the DM, I jokingly said, what if you, basically instigated a strike and then you were the scabs? And, that ended up on the potential list of plans, and now I'm greatly regretting it. So, because I was joking. I was like workers' rights, like you can make that whole thing, it'd be funny, right? And then I found, well, that's actually not the worst idea I've ever come up with. They are kind of upset. Maybe that's something that could be plausible. So, I'm not there. They have 2 weeks to figure out what they want to do with the group, what they want to do with their plans to get things organized. Maybe they decide that they want to get some more information from the town. I will say that there is more information that they could probably use that they didn't get, and if they never find it, that's fine. If they all die because they made the wrong decision, that's okay. That's how this game works. And you know what? Sir Rancent is going to send more people, and maybe they decide they want to play that, or maybe they decide they want to play another module, and I come up with a new town, and we come up with this in a different situation. We'll see. So I'm not really sure where things are going to go from there, but I do know this. This is going to be kind of interesting because Group A, guess what Group A is doing? Group A is about to enter the Moat House. The Moat House is a dungeon. Okay. Some of the players in Group A are also in Group B. Group B is potentially about to enter the Quarry, which is also a dungeon. So that means that people are going to have back to back dungeon crawls for as long as it takes to do those dungeon crawls. So even though I lamented the fact that there was no combat in this particular session, and that I dropped the ball on the only combat that we had on the last session for Group A, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to find myself just chock full of just, you know, I'm going to be full of, I've had enough dungeon crawl. I'm pretty sure that that's where I'm going. I say that, but I've run nothing but dungeon crawls for months at a time and still enjoyed it. So anyway, that is what is going on with Group B. That was the first session. The players were phenomenal. They were taking notes, and I can tell because they're like, "Oh, Almericus, right? You know, oh, Nistor, right? Oh, didn't Quan say this? You know, so these are intelligent players, and I love it. They are seriously getting into this, and they are excited to play. I can't be happier. I could not be happier about how this is going. And I'm just savoring every moment of it because you all know that every campaign has a time limit. You just don't know when it's going to be. And I'm hoping that this one is going to go for a long time, but I'm just enjoying it as it is. So let's look at the comments, and then I'm just going to talk to chat. So that is going to be the plan. Here we go. Okay. Robbie says she's 3 strength and 8 con, lack of imagination in modern times. Okay, so this is Covidius. Yeah, Covidius Eternus. So Robbie is the player of that character, and she was I think she has an 18 intelligence though. Oh yeah. Yeah, he says, but 18 intelligence. So she made a point of purposely mispronouncing that aristocrat's name as we left. Yeah. Called him Granny instead of Grainy. Yeah. I'm hoping that comes into play. Some stuff with that. Doof says that like button needs to be clicked. You know, it really could. It really could use some clicking, perhaps. Pete says address for Discord. I'll put it in the description of this video. Let's see. Robbie says, makes sense now. I was thinking he was a leper or something. That may have been better. That would be less disgusting. I probably should have done that instead. Okay. Dune Peak says, does this keep on the Borderlands talk? If so, I better dip out. Fortunately for you, it was not. B1, and besides that's B2. B1 for this purpose is Group B, Session 1. So eventually, if the game goes on long enough, then it will eventually be, like B32 or something like that. So it's like, oh yeah, no, that's not keep on the Borderlands. So I'll have to, I think I have to get up to 10 maybe for people to stop thinking that might be related to that series. I can't remember how many B series modules there are. Total Party Skill says, wow, I came across this stream way late in. I need to see if you would like to join a stream sometime, buddy. Robbie says, Americas, fuck yeah. Joining to give us protection to the mines. Yeah. If you're not familiar with that movie, then, you should go check it out. The dwarves are taking our jobs. Okay. Yield Geek says, best part of the module, it's so open, lots of freedom. Yes. So once they finish the module, I will very happily do. But here's the thing: you don't have to listen to me. You don't have to wait for me to do it. Go check out Yield Geek's channel and go see what he has to say about Danger at Dark Shelf Quarry A0. Go check that out. But when I'm done with it, what I'll be able to do is I'll say, this is how it went. And this is everything I loved about it. And here's the stuff that they missed and blah, blah, blah. And hopefully they don't go back and say, oh, gee, Aaron, I kind of feel like maybe we should go back to that quarry. I don't know why, but I just felt like maybe we missed something. Some modules are better for that than others. Like, for instance, if you ever do some of the Dungeon Crawl Classics modules have a tendency of collapsing at the end, like Pit of the People of the Pit, for instance. SAO Rogue says, hello, buddy, looking good. I appreciate it. Yeah, I had to get a haircut. So the reason I had to get a haircut was because I also have to shave. And I know that once I shave, I'm going to look like a little kid. And it was going to be a lot worse if I still had the poofy hair. So it sucks. Robbie says, as a 3 strength magic user, I'm okay with no combat. Yes, that is kind of your lot on life. 3 strength magic user is it's a rough place to inhabit. It really is. Yeah. Yeah, you're going to need every bit of help that you can get. John D says, I'm running the 5e remake of T1. I know. And my party is in the moat house as well. Narrowly escaped a TPK last session, went back to Hamlet to lick their wounds. So, I'm always way down here because my chair, it sits low. 5th edition. I would like to do, this is actually, so Total Party Skills, shout out to Total Party Skills, did a video. I want to say it was called like a retrospective on 5th edition. And I really would like to do something like that as well, because I think that there's a lot to say about 5th edition. If people talk shit about something for a certain length of time, then eventually I get numb to the things that I didn't like. And I want to say positive things. I want to present a nuanced approach, to whatever the discussion is. So because of that, I kind of feel like I need to be the 5e apologist a little bit. And there are some things that I've been wanting to say. Namely that it is a fairly competent edition, and you can pull off some really awesome stuff with it if you use the right restrictions. It's a very modular system. That said, there are a lot of things that I don't care for, but still. Pete says sleep can make up for 3 strength. It can if you have sleep. I don't know that Covidia has sleep. I don't know that she does. I can't remember what spells. Okay, I know that right now she has memorized Shocking Grasp. She has, what was the other one? She had Shocking Grasp and one other spell. But yeah, the 5e remake of T1. So I'm guessing you have like the big book that they did. So it's T1 through 4 has all of the Temple of Elemental Evil. That to me is one of the situations that I would be happy to have their version. The reason for that is because if you, damn it. There goes one of my books. If you look at this thing right here, so this is my cheapo version. This is print on demand. And this is, what did it cost? I don't know, $20 maybe. So a lot less expensive. And even though I plan on using this exclusively for AD&D or BX, not really for 5th edition, fact of the matter is that there's a lot of holes in this bitch. There are a lot of holes in this bitch. There's a lot of stuff that I'm going to tweak in order to be what I'm interested in running. That from what I understand, the 5th edition version has actually added more content there and has made it more runnable as is, which is a good thing. If you ask me, the worst case scenario is I have to tweak it a little bit rather than having to add. Tweaking is a little bit easier than adding, unless it's just so bad that you're deleting. So, In that, I would say, John, that getting the 5th edition remake of T1 is actually a great thing to do, especially to do that, to have a group of 5e players, if that's what you're used to, or not what you're used to, what they're used to, and to say, look, this is an official 5th edition product. You can feel safe with this, right? This is something that came out this year. You know, it's not some old piece of shit, that those terrible people used to run that nobody wants to play it with anymore. This is a new product. Wizards of the Coast made this happen. And because of that, actually Goodman Games, but because of that, you can trust that it is going to be a good time. It's going to be good for our 5th edition gaming purposes. And so what you do is you lull them into a false sense of security. They agree to play it. And then they're like, wait a minute, this is pretty cool. So, like, how different is this from the old stuff? And then you got a bit of a gateway. You're like, oh, well, it's pretty much about the same. They didn't really have to change that much. A lot of the stuff is just really cool things. And, we don't have to have these big honking, adventure campaign books that are, from levels 1 to 20 or some shit. We don't have to, that doesn't have to be what D&D is. It doesn't have to be that you're the epic heroes. It could be that you're just going into a place where all kinds of bad stuff is, and you're probably going to die, and it's going to be fun. I think that is doing the good work. Doing the good work. John D adds, I think it's better than some of the alternative 5e adventures for sure. It is difficult. Yeah. I can't speak on the 5th edition adventures. I'm really, Lost Minds of Phandelver was pretty good. That's how I learned how to create my own homebrew stuff for 5e when I first started. And I had a peek at some other stuff, but like I've never been too incredibly impressed by some of this stuff. Like I read Curse of Strahd, but then I also found out that it's very, very, very heavily just 1st edition Ravenloft with like more padding and new stuff. So, I can't really give them a whole ton of credit for that, but yeah. What else we got here? Dune Peak says, I'm looking into Barrow Maze. There is a Labyrinth Lord version in 5th edition. Anyone have experience with either? Me personally, no, but I have heard tremendous things about Barrow Maze. When you're dealing with enormous mega dungeons, then I think that you could probably make it work with just about any system. Carl says it doesn't fit very well with 5e's style. And I think that that's a true statement if you are thinking in terms of what the players' styles usually are. Because Barrow Maze is probably, again, I'm speaking from ignorance. I'm just thinking in terms of generic mega dungeon, because mega dungeons typically don't care about your character. That kind of is counter to how a lot of people who are players of 5e think about playing the game, because they think in terms of character arc. Character arc has no business in Barrow Maze. If they think in terms of, I would like to have this character do some really cool things and have a dangerous adventure and challenges to overcome, then I think that they could have a good time. But I think setting the expectations would be important. He says the resource factor is just so different from OSR to 5e that a lot just doesn't work. Okay. So if there's very heavy emphasis on resources, then yeah, that could very well be true. If you're talking about resources in terms of torches being extinguished, then yeah, 5th edition makes it so that almost every group makes sure that they have a wizard or somebody who can cast light at will, or they maybe have a warlock who has devil sight, or something where they're not really having to worry about darkness that much. Most people have dark vision anyway. Yeah. People can get into, well, dark vision means you have a -5 to your passive perceptions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, and you can't see color. But yeah, there's the whole thing about food and water. It's a lot easier to have that in 5th edition than it is in the early stuff. So yeah, resources are just tricky because, you know, you have to make the players get something out of tracking resources. And a lot of them, it's hard to get them to sign up for that. Yield Geek says, shenanigans. I did something similar with my 5W group. I guess, 5E, I'm pretty sure. Started by converting L2, X2, X4, and X5 to 5E for them. That's cool. A year later, converted them to top 1E. Maybe you just meant 2. Converted them to... Okay. Yeah. Mega dungeons care about your characters, usually as a food source. That is very true. Yeah, as a food source, as you know, one of the things, I have a mega dungeon that I've used before. Now, admittedly, I've already kind of stated my affinity for random creation tools, and one of those that I like is using random dungeon floors, putting them together, and then filling in all kinds of stuff so that we have a coherent dungeon put together at the end of it. And one of them I came up with was called the Jade Empress's Playhouse. And the whole concept behind that is that she's this, she's basically a lesser deity who is confined to this particular domain where anybody that dies in this place, their soul can never leave. And she basically forces them into different states of reincarnation in order to amuse her. And she just has everybody going on and doing, killing each other and things like that for her own amusement. And, just getting into shenanigans. And really, it's a very gonzo type mega dungeon. We had a lot of fun with it whenever we played it. And I feel like someday I might expand the scope of it. And I don't know if it would, I don't know if anybody else would ever benefit from it, but I had fun with it. So I like, but it is funny that you say that, because in that case, not so much as a food source as it is kind of in a cursed chateau style source of entertainment for the overlord, or, I guess overlord is an appropriate term for somebody who manages a dungeon. Pete Giant says 5e adventures have potential yet remain too much on rails for players. Yeah, there have been some rather egregious things that people have said about what is said in some modules. I think one of them was a Dragon Heist page that said something to the extent of don't allow your players to intercept this item. Like, it has to get away from them, because otherwise the module, the entire adventure, falls apart, and you can't have that happen. And then I'm just thinking, wow, that sucks. I anytime you have something like that, that sucks. I'm also running a Dragon Age RPG game, and that's redundant. Dragon Age role-playing game. It was going to be redundant anyway, I guess. Anyway, I'm running that, and one of the adventures that I was using is Blood and Ferelden. And I'm not liking it, because it has a very railroady way of writing. One of the things that it does is it says, it gives you a cinematic, basically. This bad guy comes in, he breaks through this cloth, he reaches in and grabs this girl, and he bites. No, he didn't bite her. He stabs her with a poison dagger, and there ain't shit you can do about it, because if you could do something about it, then she might not get stabbed, and then you might not be inclined to do the quest. So, fuck. So whenever I was running that, and then the player said, "Oh, so is there like, can we like do initiative? Can I like try and stop them from stabbing or whatever?" I was like, "Yeah, you can. This is a fucking role-playing game. I'm not a goddamn movie director." I was mad at the module for even suggesting that. It's just like, no, this just happens. You're just a spectator. Enjoy the show and then get on the ride. Fuck that. Me personally, I cannot stand that. Like, the most control I have over the player characters is by saying where we start the session. That's it. Like, from there, It's their show. And if they're going so far off the rails that I can't run anything adequately, then I can tell them when I say off the rails aren't really there. When I say off of my prepared area, if you will, then what I do is I say, I'm not ready to run any further. So let's take a break. Or I'll say, yeah, I don't have anything prepared for that. So we can do something else for the rest of the day after you tell me what it is you're interested in pursuing for the next session. There's nothing wrong with that. Why is it the expectation that I'm just going to pull everything out of my ass, or I'm going to force you to stay on a railroad? Why is it such a black and white issue? Fuck. Okay. Dune Peaks says, what would B1 feel like if you use the DCC funnel start? So, if you're talking about, all right, B1, like, the module, or if you're talking about B1 as in like this session that we had, okay, I can't really, I don't know too much about Into the Unknown. So or In Search of the Unknown. I don't know that module very well. I do know that that's very open exploration from what I understand. And like a lot of like you filling in the rooms from what I understand. So I can't answer that. I cannot answer that. I would say that I don't think that I would be keen to do a very open exploration themed game with the DCC funnel start. I feel like the funnel is at best a punchy character creation process. You know, you're on site, you have something cool to do. A lot of you are going to die in the process. And at the end of it, you're going to have a shared adventure. And we're going to start, you know, doing the stuff. Oh, you actually clarified. So I should shut up. But yeah. So as far as that goes with the way that we started this adventure, so a good, I guess, way I would look at that as far as DCC funnel starts go would be, if you've ever heard of The Lady in Blue, which that comes from Hole in the Sky. You know, you have this patron in a very similar situation, except for she's incredibly powerful, but that is a very high magic. That's a demon of incredible power. You know, but you know, puts them in a very fantastical situation. And you know, I feel like DCC funnels are at their best whenever they're just high octane, people dying left and right, you know, thrill rides. The exception for that would be, I do like the short dungeon crawls for DCC funnels as well. So Hole in the Sky worked really well, obviously, for my group. Even though I did kind of hate some of the railroadiness. I mean, once we accepted that it is just part of character creation process, it was a lot better once I accepted it, because my players weren't as upset as I was. They did kind of lament, like they're like, oh, there's really only one way to go up there. You know, they did kind of lament that. They did want some more exploration or whatever, but you know, I think I was more disappointed than they were. And then Sailors on the Starless Sea is, you know, the quintessential DCC funnel, you know. But if I were to start this group at level 0 doing this adventure, I think I would maybe have them start as, oh, I almost revealed something. Okay. So players in my group, cover your ears. Cover your ears until I stop doing this. Okay. So players in my group, cover your ears until I stop doing this. All right. So what I would do is I would start them as slaves. And this is what I actually told one of my friends. I said, hey, I'm thinking about starting them as having been caught and being slaves in Dark Shelf Quarry, and that Quan will help them break free. But some of them are probably going to die, you know. But for those that get out, maybe then, you know, they get their bearings or whatever out in the town. Maybe they get some help getting set up, and then they want to infiltrate later on their own terms to clean up what they started. Basically, that's kind of what I was thinking about doing. That was the start that I considered. But you know what my friend said? My friend said, nobody likes starting as a slave, Aaron. Don't do it. They don't want to be a prisoner. Don't start them as a prisoner. I was like, you know what? while you're right, I think it's because people do it poorly most of the time. I think it's because a lot of times it's like, I expect you to find the right solution to getting unlocked out of your cell or something like that, or out of your manacle, and it being some kind of puzzle and, question and answer kind of thing, rather than boom, this guy comes up to you, he unfastens your manacles, the goblin's looking the other way, roll initiative, and then just from there, now you're exploring the inside of the quarry, that kind of thing. So that is probably what I would do if I was thinking about it in that terms, because if you start with a group of level 1s in AD&D in this module, which is A0, and you start them as already being captured, then there's a very good chance that that they're gonna die. Several of them are gonna die, and that's what AD&D is. So that's fine. That's it. Yield Geek says the Tracy Hickman Railroad Effect Dragonlance has so much to answer for. Yeah, for as much as Tracy Hickman and that whole style, as I understand it, has really hit a strong nerve on a lot of people. If it wasn't Tracy Hickman, it would have been somebody else. And I mean, now would they have had the same effect that they did with Dragonlance? Probably not. Dragonlance was huge from everything I understand. I own one Dragonlance book. I've never read it. I picked it up because I was like, you know what? It's on sale. It's there. And I kind of want to have it on my shelf for if there's a rainy day and I get a chance to read, maybe it'll be good, but I'm not expecting a whole lot. Surprise round. Oh, are you talking about for the Dragon Age game? I don't know. You'll have to clarify. Okay. John D. So he says DCC funnel is better when there is a clear goal and everyone buys into the fact they are doing the thing or don't have a choice. Yeah, that is true. And that took some adjustment. I'm a lot more willing to accept that on a first session. Once we have played a first session, or even maybe like a short campaign, like maybe 4 sessions or something like that. As long as the DM or judge or whatever is running with the philosophy or the guiding philosophy that even though you will do the thing, they will make sure that there are many ways that you can do the thing and that you can fail at the thing. Let me fail. If I can't fail, then I don't want to play, period. I just don't want to. That's me. Some people, they are more interested in being able to make dramatic moments, portray their character, and that's fine. We had during our session last night, we had a lot of really interesting character portrayal. And I kind of highlighted some of those in the stream earlier on. But at the same time, that's not what we show up what we, as in me and people that think like me in this capacity, show up for. I hit a gold mine here, boys. We'll see. N4 had to start with the players captured on a slaver ship. They also started at level 0. That sounds pretty cool. I would definitely play that. It just, again, it depends on how you start it, and how long is it until they can start making a meaningful decision, and how much of it is you have to do the exact solution that I came up with beforehand. Pete says, I like playing the Gong Farmer as long as I can have a gong and equipment. N4 is a decent little module, competent, but nothing spectacular. Yeah, a lot of the old modules that are not highly appraised, they all seem to be competent, but nothing spectacular. But that's kind of the point. It's like, here is a map and a location and monsters and treasure, and now you make it better. That's ultimately what I'm trying to do. With all of these, I'm not running them exactly as they're written. I'm adding shit, like I'm giving you, all right, here's your hook. Here's more details for you to deal with. Here's some other complication. You know, the stuff that they found in Hamlet, or that they learned about. You know, they found the amulet with the pyramid of eyes. Well, we have the Watcher off there that Group B is dealing with, and the treasure that they're looking for is a pyramid-shaped object with eyes on it. You know, things are connected. What does it all mean? Question mark. I like the idea of adventure acting as a crucible that converted them from 0 level to adventurers. Oh, the adventure acting, not adventurer acting, as a crucible that converted. Yeah, yeah. I like it too. I will say that I typically like for there to be a chronological gap, you know, between that level 0 and level 1, if at all possible. Even though I've done it without that before, because you will have some people that it's like, oh yeah, I couldn't cast spells earlier. Now I can, and I can cast like 4 of them, you know, that kind of thing. I like there to be a bit of a chronological gap so that it's like, oh yeah, this was how we got started. And then months later, boom, you know, we're going on our first adventure together as level 1s. And people, you should play Dungeon Crawl Classics at level 1. No, you don't necessarily have to start there, but people that push the funnel too much, I think that I would much more prefer that people experience what level 1 is like than the funnel, because level 1 is awesome in DCC. I will say this though, the funnel was mind-blowing the first time I played it, because I had never died as a PC before and actually earned it. John says choice is still good, and once level 1, any tracks there are gone, hopefully. Yeah, that is true. Mechanics to gain a level 1 class were interesting. I'm not familiar. Oh, okay. So you're talking about in that module. N5 is a great sandbox starting module. N5, I'm not familiar with it. All right. So it is noonish, and I believe that I have exhausted this particular stream. I really appreciate people coming by and hanging out, and hopefully you enjoyed this discussion. And if you missed the beginning, then go back and catch the replay. As a YouTube guy, I think I'm supposed to say, you know, like, share, subscribe, etc. Dislike, you know, especially because now you can't hurt my feelings with the dislikes until I learn how to do the math on ratios. But yeah, so next week, you know, we're gonna be doing A2. When I say A2, it's not the module. I probably should change the group names. Maybe I'll change the group names. It'll be group. No, because even if I'm just using letters, maybe it's Sigma 1, and I don't know. Fuck it. But yeah, so y'all take it easy. And the next video that I plan on doing is on 13th Age. So we'll see how that goes. That way, after I, you know, get a little bit of cred with my old school stuff that I like, then I can lose all of that cred by talking about a Fourier derivative. Anyway, y'all take it easy. Peace out.